Welcome to Raising Unstoppable Teens. I'm Dr. Kimberly Shear, teen breakthrough expert, and your host for today's episode. I have a special guest. Her name is Jeannine Riant. And before we dive into conversation with her, I would like to briefly introduce her. Jeannine loves working with women as an energy worker, facilitator, speaker, and author, and Akashic connector. Her gift is to illuminate what no longer serves you so that you can experience your authentic, vibrant self as she gives you tools, support, and resources to fully embrace and own who you choose to be in this lifetime. As a whole body focusing professional, Jeannine has seen women regain control of their monkey mind, find their inner power and support system, create a better quality of life for themselves, make better decisions, and learn to trust their inner self as they discover their inner beauty and authenticity. She believes that before you can have a successful relationship with a partner, your children, your career, your health, and yes, even your money, you must first have a solid, compassionate, well-grounded relationship with yourself. You and who you are being is the root cause to all challenges you may experience, as well as all the possibilities that exist for you to experience your full potential in this lifetime and beyond. Please welcome Jeannine Riant to the show.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so honored to be a guest on your show today.
I was so excited about this particular interview because you just have such a you just radiate warmth and peace, and it's just a pleasure just to be in your presence right now. So thank you. Okay, so my first question, we're just going to dive right in, is what were your teen years like?
Oh, I just wanted them to be over, if I am very truthful. Grade 10, 11, 12, I'm in Canada, so we go to grade 12, and I just couldn't wait for them to be over. It was a mix of me being on the sidelines, and here are the popular kids, and here's me when it was, how shall I say, when it was okay for them to invite me. I was invited when no one else could come, and then if not, I was just kind of shunned and pushed to the side and forgotten. And so it was a real mixed bag of, do I belong? Don't I belong? I wanted to escape my hometown. It was just I was done. I couldn't wait to just find the door to university. It was to leave. But they weren't my happiest of moments.
But they have all contributed to who you are today, right? All those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice in those times what makes you strong, what makes you weak. And even though I pushed through and I did it, and there were some roller coasters when I would walk in my home, like the face would come on, and slamming doors and throwing my bags, and then when I would leave the front door, a smile would come on my face, which I'm sure many parents experience, and I as a parent have experienced. And it was a safe space to come home and just be able to kind of let the steam go. But I put on that face out there, as I believe many teens out there do put on the face when they leave the door. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's an important point for sure. And I think sometimes even though we can let go at home, sometimes we don't always express all that we may be feeling, or that we're concerned about, all our anxiety and sadness and stuff. Some teens won't even express that with their parents and let their parents know. And so still they're a bit, what I don't want to say, have a smile on their face for their parents too. And then parents can sometimes be surprised when things really blow up.
Mm-hmm. I find it's either that, and also as a teacher, I was a principal and I'm a teacher, and so I see it, and I see those kids who are like, they're suffering inside, and there's so much inside, and when you can create that crack open, the floodgates come out, and they can tell me things as a teacher, but they would never ever tell their parents, or they would never feel comfortable. And I don't think it's a sign of that our parents are this or that, or that our parents don't love us. It's simply they need to find that safe space. And if home is a place where they can let go up to a certain extent, or they used to be that way, or they have to put on the facade, or they feel like they have to be strong, or they can't just kind of let it all go, because that's not where it happens. It has to happen somewhere else. And so school is one of those places that it does happen. And you either get that child or that teen who will hold it in, and then boom, like I have one of those. The floodgates come open, and like she'll hold it in. I have two girls, both in university now, one in first year and one in fourth year, but and hold, and then, but some will never do that. And then, so they're really hurting and they're really moving inside. And then there's those teens, as you say, will just, yeah, no, everything's great. It's good, great, wonderful. And then you had no idea. So I see all of those sort of scenarios in my work, and in both my works. Yeah.
Yes, and I can agree. I do too. And I just know that a lot is expressed through my work with teens, and because they don't, it can be scary to let our parents know what's really going on, and many teens don't want to disappoint their parents. So if they're feeling pressured, or there's expectations from, parental expectations on them that they disagree with, or they want to go in a different direction, or even if they're really, really hurting, even sometimes that can be really scary, to just open up. So you're absolutely, teachers are often sometimes the first to know these things, and then to bring in the parents and help these kids have a dialogue, or at least get the support that they need, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some kids want to keep their parents safe.
Very good point.
I've come across where well, it's either financial, or they can't ask, they can't really express themselves or do what they want to do, because that would just be too much of a burden. So I don't want to put my family through that. There's so many, so we kind of see the lens of it's about them, but to them sometimes it's about their parents. Like if I mention this, or if I say this, or if I do this, or if I want this, it'll have too much of a ripple effect of an impact that I don't want in the family. And that might not even be true, but it's the story they're saying in their heads, right?
Yeah. And that was an excellent point, Jeannine, because that happens a lot as well. And, kids pick up on our anxiety, and they hear what we're talking about with our partners. And they're just aware, sometimes when we're in our own drama, so to speak, or our own hardships, we're just trying to get through the day with that. And we don't really realize that our teens and our kids are really picking up on that. And even on an energetic level, even if you are, going out on, let's say, a date, so to speak, out to dinner with your partner and venting there, you're not even around your kids. But the fact that you're feeling stressed or anxious or depressed, they do pick up on that. And I loved what you said. A lot of teens, a lot of kids kind of take on that responsibility of not wanting to add to parental stress. So, but this is right up your alley in a way, as far as parents being stressed or anxious. And certainly right now, I would think, it's on the rise for not only teens, but for adults, and many of them have lost their job. And there is a lot of anxiety about the unknown, as well as just the stress over, being unemployed or other situational things. They may have lost a loved one due to this, but this is stuff that you can help with, right? With
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you say that energetic piece, I mean, I can't stress it enough. It's huge. It's huge. And in our physical world and in the scientific world, and we see all the, talking conversation, but there's so much that takes place within. And as you say, even though you're not in the room, if you're talking somewhere else, when you walk into that house or when they walk into that house, they feel. And lots of these children are coming in. If you have teens now, or if you're just getting into the teenhood, like these children are coming in. And here's my belief, and it doesn't have to be everybody's belief, but in the energy world, they're coming into the earth and they are awake. And they know and they feel and they sense and they are empaths and they suck it all in. Mm-hmm. And I may say something that triggers people, and it's not what I want to do, but I just want to plant this seed that I'm not going to say all, but I do believe that some of the anxiety within our teens, and even within parents, but mostly within our teens, is they're feeling so much they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. Everything's bombarded at them, thrown at them, like their friend who's going through stuff, their parents, they're at work, what's happening, and they are consuming it all and they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's people like me or, as you say, in the teacher in a classroom, but someone who can connect to energy mm-hmm. can make that connection for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important. And so, as if you're a parent out there who has one of those teens who's just, you're kind of sensing something is like, they're feeling everything. An example, my oldest, we were walking one day and she said, "Mom, that old lady has a broken arm. It should be me." And I'm like, no, let's stop right here. It shouldn't be you. That's hers. It's not yours. But she was already feeling into that space. And so to teach our children that as they're growing up and as they're coming alive, like, yes, there's all of that that's happening around you, but how about you? You have to take care of you, and you have to honor the energy within you, and you can't take care of everyone else. And it sounds selfish and it sounds counterproductive to what we've been told, but we have to start going in. And as parents, it's the same thing. We have to start going in to take care of ourselves. You become a better mother, a better partner, a better woman in all aspects. And I truly, truly believe that.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. You raised a couple of things that are fluttering in my mind. First of all, absolutely, I do agree with you. And that is something I also teach teens, because we are conditioned to think of others first, to be more of the giver than the receiver. Even self-acknowledgement, which I think is a huge practice, because it's actually a help with rewiring the brain, even when you're acknowledging and feeling to celebrate or self-praise for putting forth effort towards some accomplishment. That helps reinforce those behaviors that got you those results when you're acknowledging yourself or when you celebrate. So it's critical to do that. Yet I feel like a lot of teens, I liked what you said, it's counterintuitive, but only because that's the way we're conditioned to not really acknowledge ourselves. We're quick to acknowledge others possibly, but we almost equate self-acknowledgement with selfishness, and same with putting ourselves first. I have a lot of students that they're learning to really to advocate for themselves and to take the time that they need to prioritize their studying, for example. And they're still, well, after I helped my friend, or I told my friend I would help him or her with their homework. Yeah. And it's still that people pleasing kind of idea and not putting themselves first. And then their grades suffer because they ran out of time, or it's just not a priority. So they don't have as much time to dedicate to themselves with getting the results they want to get for their life. So that's really just huge. I love that piece that it's not selfish, and I do believe that all of this begins from within, and we're all leaders of our own lives, and it begins within, being kind to ourselves, loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, and then we have more of that to really recognize out in the world and to give, but not if we're not filled up first. And I'm not saying it's easy to do, but that's where we need to begin. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I loved also what you said about the empaths, because I think you and I are both empaths. And I loved what you said about the energy not being theirs. And I think that's really important for all of us to learn how to discern that. Because as an empath, we are picking up on other people's energy. And it's hard to tell whether that's our energy or their energy, right? So that's kind of a skill that takes practice, and we have to learn.
I agree. And as you come up with that skill, if I can intervene and say, like, we practice our muscle. When we train, when we exercise, we have a muscle. We make it better, bigger, whatever, however we want to. But there's also energy muscles. And I think people can relate when I say or use those words, but that one practical tip that I can give to parents and teens and everyone, like from this high to this tall, whatever, is when you're feeling something, like you say, and it's not yours, and we're just taking it all in, take a breath in and exhale and say, does this belong to me? And if it doesn't feel right in the body, it doesn't belong to you. You don't even need to know where it's coming from, who it is, what it belongs, what it's about. This whole fear space that's happening in our world right now, there's a collective consciousness that is in fear. Does it belong to me? When you're sitting there and you're feeling that wave of, or even the teens or whoever is feeling that wave of energy come through and it doesn't feel right, does it belong to me? No. Return to sender with consciousness attached. And simply say, return to sender with consciousness attached. And you'll feel that space, you'll feel that buzz of ickiness kind of reside and subside. And you won't lock it into your body. And so you can do that for anything. And that's a muscle I've been practicing for many years. And now that we're in this space, when those waves come flowing through, I'm like, does this belong to me? Nope. Return to sender with consciousness attached, and I move on. But we seem to kind of learn all these techniques and go into our inner space and dive in and do the thing at a workshop or somewhere, and then we go home and life takes over and we keep going. But how about if we keep practicing those muscles when we don't necessarily need them, or on those little pieces of life, so that when the big stuff happens, they're automatic and they're right there. And that is something that when I teach, every kid in my classroom meditates. Doesn't matter if I'm teaching English or drama or whatever, they always get that side of me, because I tell them that's so important. And these teens are starving for it. And we're not seeing that. We don't see it reflected in them because they're busy, they're going, they're running, they're doing, they're making. But I'd say out of a 20, 25, 30 classroom, maybe 2 kids will not resonate with it. And I just give them the opportunity to not resonate with it, but I will invite it and do it in every classroom, because I know that's what society needs. Those are our kids coming up. They're taking on the world. And so as parents, we need those muscles too. Yes. Because they're going to give us the go around and they're going to give, so what do you do when they're pushing your buttons? You need those muscles. You need to practice those techniques, those tips, those, whatever you're learning, whether it's through breath work, whether it's through, there's so many things, but just like that simple technique of return to consciousness, return with consciousness attached, keep saying it, whether it's stopping the mind chatter, whatever it is you're doing, use it when you don't need it, so that when you absolutely need it, it's there.
I love that. It does take practice before something becomes a habit or automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, you want it to become automatic before the big stuff hits.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I just want to expand upon is also returning that energy with consciousness. Because with saying that, what we're really saying is kind of return to sender with the choice that they can choose to let go of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're sending back, bad
Right.
crap, though, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, we
So,
want consciousness. We want that higher self. We want that higher self to receive it and to kind of move through it and do it with ease. Doesn't have to be all with non-ease. There
mhm,
is ease and joy and grace, and to just flow it back to them, not to hurt them,
right.
so that they can just do what they need to do with it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's the intention that's going with that. So
Yeah.
the other thing too that I was just thinking of, because I really am tied to nature, and of course, that it's just an expansive space to be out in nature. And I think sometimes when we're feeling this energy tapping in, is it mine or someone or someone or something else's? And then if it's not ours, not only can we return it with, again, the intention of uh, the person being able to choose what they want to do with it now, but we can also return it to the earth, because
Mm-hmm.
the earth, like that beautiful tree. I love trees, so I go
I do
with
too.
trees. Yeah, it's just is very secure for me. But it doesn't look at it like it's negative. It can take that energy of your sadness. We're attaching the sadness to it, and
Mhm.
there definitely is real feelings, and there's chemical responses in our body to it. So I'm not denying that. But when we can return it even to nature, and
Mhm.
there's no judgment. That's why I love nature, because
Yeah.
there's no judgment with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another, like Mother Nature. So breathing in all of what you need, want, desire, the positivity, and as you exhale, bring it down to your feet, down into Mother Nature, moving it through those roots and sending it. And she will repurpose and process it back into positivity.
Yeah.
And for some, it might be like, what is all this hooji booji stuff? Like, what are you talking about? Just trust or not. And it's okay. We're all different. We're all thinking in our own way. We're all processing in our own way. But Mother Nature is vibrant, and she's speaking to us very loudly right now. And she has changed stuff in this moment in time. And so she can change our energy. And, just before we were connecting, I was out there in water and on the grass and bare feet, and just even walking bare feet on earth. And just as you breathe in all the positive you want. As you exhale all the negative away, and just offer it to her, and she will recycle it beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing anyway, because absolutely, this might be really out there for some of our listeners, and even some of your students, like you said, maybe too, don't, even with meditation, but they're being exposed to it, I guess, and just allowing them, wherever they're at is important.
Yeah.
But we don't, and then they're getting exposed to this, and it just increases their awareness. And one day they might see a woo-woo connection at some point
Mm-hmm.
in time. And then it might help them to understand things better, or to, have better discernment. Whatever, they can still gain and grow from it, I guess is my
Absolutely.
point. Because I know for me, I've had those experiences that I guess I could say are coincidences, which I no longer believe in that. I don't think anything's really a coincidence. I do
Mm-hmm.
think it's all intentional. But I had a situation where my daughter was actually in Ireland, and I woke up. So I don't know what the time difference is, but quite a bit, at least
Mm-hmm.
9 hours or so. And I woke up in the morning, and I woke up feeling depressed. And I thought about this, and this was kind of before, is this mine or someone else's, right? So I'm like, what do I have to be depressed about? I mean, cognitively, there was nothing in my conscious mind to be depressed about, but I felt depressed. And it was the weirdest thing. And then at around 2 o'clock, I get a call, 2 o'clock my time, I get a call from my daughter in Ireland. She broke up with her boyfriend. She was just sobbing. She wanted to come home. I was picking up on her depression,
Absolutely.
on her sadness. And she's in Europe. I mean, like, right? And so that was kind of a very, so in hindsight, once I did kind of get more into some energy awareness or knowledge of it, educated myself a little more with it, then I look at that and I'm like, wow. So I took it as though it was my own, although I kind of knew it wasn't because I didn't have any story to it. But I didn't know what to do with it. And it wasn't really that clear to me that it could be somebody else's.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful. Even if you don't buy into it, you don't have to. But just that we're having this interview and it's just maybe even a new idea can already just expand your awareness and you start seeing things connect in ways you may have not otherwise seen. So
yeah. And if I can connect that to a parent-teen connection, using my example, I mean, I've had the eye rolls many times because I am in the energy world as well as a teacher. So the kids see me meditate and they see me on calls and doing things and having the massage table with fingers on people's heads and doing all that kind of thing. And when I asked them if they want it, they're like, no, Mom, I'm good. And I get the eye roll. And I did get those eye rolls like grade 9, 10, 11, 12. But now they're in university. And all of a sudden it's, oh, Mama, you could probably talk to this person. You could probably help them. Oh, okay. Mom, I'm starting to read a book on blah, blah, blah. And it's a book on, energy work, or not necessarily energy work, but getting better, helping, like I'll call it a self-help book, but that kind of work. And so I guess my point from this example is, even though we think they're absolutely not listening, they are. They're watching, they're sensing, they're looking, they're seeing, they're spying, they're feeling, all that is coming at them. And so if you are constantly, as a parent, not taking care of yourself, you're showing, be a model of what you want your teens to do. They won't do it right away because they're not going to give you the satisfaction of being great as a mom. And we're not all great as moms and dads. We all have our moments. We all have our pitfalls. I can tell you, for 6 months when the kids were growing up, and that is teens, I had to take literally time for myself. And if I did not do that, like, I fed them and I brought them where they needed to go, but I didn't play with them. It had to be about me. And if I did not do that for those 6 months, I would not have been the mother or the partner or the Jeannine I am today. And that's where I first discovered the energy work. And I was dying inside. And so to take care of you is primordial. It's so important. And then the model of what you're portraying to your children, even though they're like, yeah, whatever, and they think you're crazy and silly and the whole bit, I just tell my kids, you've got a crazy, funky grandma coming on the way. And so, but they now, I see now, and I may only see it in another 2-3 years, really, but I am starting to see the seeds that I sowed in some kind of way, shape, or form, maybe towards one daughter more than the other. And that's okay. We're all different. They don't have to be like us. And I think at times and for me, I always come back to, okay, that was my life, but this is their life. So they want to go that way and they want to do that. And they need to now, as teenagers, we need to let them fall to a certain point. We need to let them learn however they're going to learn. And when they hit university, it's a bigger, like, okay, I'm stepping back, but still be in integrity in who you are and what you're showing them and what's important, because they'll pick up on those values very quickly and they will listen to more of what you're doing in what
Yes.
you're saying. And so,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It's so true. It's
Mm-hmm.
more about what you're role modeling. That's what they're really, that's how the message really lands for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it begins with us. And even with, as you say, the self care, what are we role modeling?
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of ourselves first. And I think that's empowering. And I also love what you said about allowing our teens, yeah, to fall, because that's empowering them too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about enabling them, it's about empowering them and having, allowing them to choose differently and handle those results and consequences are, that's actually empowering them. And it's also sending them the message that um that they're capable of handling
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what is transpired. Now, we're obviously not talking about something that's extremely detrimental to their health, safety, or well-being in that way, right? So I just
Yeah.
want to put that out there. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, allowing them to, and they won't give you the satisfaction. I love that. That is
Mm-hmm.
so true. And they could even come back 2 days later and say exactly what you said, but it's been 2 days and now they're owning it. And so they're like, yeah, whatever works, right? And the other thing I really actually want to express my gratitude for you saying is that as parents, we do our best with where we're at. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. It's expected, and we're human. Because I have known a lot of my friends who are also parents, and they'll tell me things like, "Well, I actually do yell at my kids, but I'm not going to admit that to anybody else because, and there shouldn't be that." Um, and that was a psychologist. So it's not like, I mean, so I don't know. It's just not that I'm condoning yelling at our kids, but sometimes it happens and there shouldn't be, we put so much shame around that. And we can really get into a lot of, as a parent, negative self-talk that really we're not enough, which is another reason why I think you're saying it's so important to have self-compassion and to meditate and do these self-care practices so that you stop that monkey mind, you stop that downward spiral, right?
Yeah. And to have that clear communication.
Mhm.
And maybe your child won't want to communicate, but say what needs to be said.
Right.
Maybe they'll respond, maybe they won't, but you can pretty sure they're taking it in. They're
Yeah.
taking what they want in.
Yes.
I mean, I remember I'm 49 and I grew up when around the table and my mother used to talk about, sexual encounters, but she would never say, oh, when you do. We were three kids, when you do. But she would just we'd have a conversation,
Mhm.
and we could leave the conversation from that table taking whatever we wanted, but she'd said it,
Mhm.
and it was a conversation. We could laugh about it. We'd say, whatever. It was done in a very non-formal way,
Mhm.
but the conversations were had on drugs, on sex, on blah blah blah, but never pinpointed. Well,
Mhm.
when you bring a guy, or when she had a brother, blah blah blah. But I thought that I've always taken that as an example, because I never felt it's you,
Mhm.
and I could take it in and I could leave it. So one of the things that I've been able to do with my children is, it's sometimes I'm like, all right, here's the talk. And it doesn't start, here's the talk. It's just a moment and something happens and it
Mhm.
comes out. And sometimes I get a response. I would get a response, and sometimes zero. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, I'm done now.
Mhm.
But instead of like being, well, aren't you going to answer? Well, what do you think? Well, what it is? Like, so we can get into those spaces, and
Mhm.
we're not serving them, and we're not serving us, because we're fueling our fire of, and then they're just going in there. Oh my God, can't she shut up? So we've lost it once we get into those kind of defense or
Exactly.
word battles or whatever
Mhm.
we want to call them. And so one thing is listening.
Mhm.
And I've learned to listen. And I learned when they were young. And I did a whole body focusing training, which was all about a 2-year training that got me to listen to my body and listen when others are speaking and being in that presence. And it's not always been 100% with the kids or my partner at the time or whatever. But I always come back to when they're in upheaval, when they're excited, when they have a question, listen. If you can just go and not say a word, let them spew it out. I mean, I've had my children in fetal position, crying, upset, like depress your daughter, and just sitting in the room with them. And that's it. Nothing else. Not fixing, not changing, not picking up the phone and making the call to make it right or make it different. Just letting them feel that raw emotion and holding the space. And it's easier said than done. But when you can just be there with them without a word, sometimes you're doing more good than by just trying to make it better.
Yes, and I think that's an excellent tip for our parents. I absolutely agree. And I think listening, we've heard it. It seems simple, but really the art of listening, it's not that it's difficult, but it does take practice and to really just listen. I loved what you said, not fixing it. Because I think a lot of times as parents, and I'm sure this was with you too, especially if you're an empath, we hurt when our kids are hurting. And even if we don't have the rush to fix it right away, sometimes our responses could be, you'll get through this. Think of all the other hardships that you've endured and you've got through every single one. And we think we're encouraging them. And yes, that can help, but it's timing of that. Because if we haven't first listened, and I loved what you said, I just, that gives me an image of the fetal position and letting them just sob. Now, not every teen's going to do that or every child, but your point is to really just allow just the free flow of whatever they're feeling and just being there and just being present and really hearing them makes huge difference. And then maybe after they've had a day or two to process feelings, then maybe that's a time when maybe you ask them, would you like to brainstorm some different, options of handling this, or maybe that's when we give the encouragement. But first comes the listening and letting them be safe to be completely vulnerable. And that they're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been one of my biggest lessons as a parent, I must say.
Yeah.
And having 2 different children, I mean, I'm sure it's the same with you, like one who's just chatty catty and the other who's like like, okay. And then the other one, as they grow older, one child, Mom, why do you do that with her? I'm like, I can't do what I do with you with her. Like, you're 2 different kids. Like, and that's important. It's important. And as parents, we can go, oh God, I didn't do that with the other kid. I'm such a bad parent because, well, I should do the same equal to. Yeah. And then we get all in our head, and it's like, okay, no, 2 different kids, 2 different bodies, 2 different energies, 2 different ways.
And I think that's why communication is important. So, but just for the record, both my daughters are chatty Cathy, like their mom. So, but they are different. And it's really interesting because one really doesn't like being hugged. That's just her thing. Like, she's very much empathetic, self-growth, she's very compassionate, but she doesn't like being hugged. So she likes to be appreciation and warmth, to be affection, to be shown in a different way. And so it's like I'm mindful of that. Now, yes, do I still hug her? Yes. We're not getting away completely from hugs, but I'm mindful of where, because I'm a hugger, to kind of maybe step back from that a little bit and use my words, or write her a card or something. And so it's kind of in that habit. And then my younger daughter, so exactly what you're saying, at one point said, Mom, you don't hug me that often anymore. Just like, oh, right. I mean, it was almost like I was treating them the same in
Mhm.
that regard, when it's like, okay, so now I'm very clear, but she communicated that to me. So now I know I can hug her as much as I want.
Yeah.
And I've already got my system set with the other one. She gets the occasional hug, and she gets other things for me. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely different. And again, going back to communication, both ways of, and teens can't always do that. Sometimes they really don't know what it is that they need. So as parents, trying to help them figure those things out too are important. But communication's huge, and listening's a big part of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. Well,
Absolutely.
how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about you, and if they want to do some energy work or meditation,
Mhm.
these self-care practices, where should they go to learn more about what you have to offer?
Well, my site is a bit of in the revamp mode, but right now you can find me at www.fullyalign.wixsite.com. And so again, it's kind of in the revamp. So, and also on Facebook under Jeannine Riant. And then my Facebook page. I do lives and just hang there sometimes, well, many times. So that's a good space to find me as well.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And listeners, I will also post her website and Facebook information as well. And she's been generous enough to, she has a meditation script. And so you can find that. I'll have the link to that where you can opt in on our free gift page, and then you'll be directed on how to receive that gift. But um, I don't know. I'm hoping I qualify to receive that free gift because it sounds amazing, and I think meditation is extremely
Mhm.
extremely important. So, but again, we'll have her links in the show notes so that you can connect with her and learn more about what she has to offer. So that's awesome. So next week on the show, we'll be continuing the conversation a little bit on communication with Dr. Joanne Lefebvre Connolly. She's going to be talking about communication in a very unique way. So I hope that you'll be there for that episode. And Jeannine, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. You have been absolutely just delightful to just chat with. So thank you. And thank you for your free gift, your generosity, and tips for parents. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure. I love I love being in spaces where there's communication and offerings. So thank you. I love the work that you do.
Thank you. So you're welcome.